Hey there everybody, this is Eric from Outer Limitless bringing you another tabletop review. Today I'm here to talk about the WorkSharp Field Sharpener. Now this item I don't think you could exactly call an EDC item for me, but you could absolutely call it an everyday use. This thing is used all the time, every single day. When I handle my knives, I guarantee I use this sharpener, and boy is it great. I've had this for about 2 years now, and this thing has performed wonderfully the entire time that I've owned it. Now I'll talk to you about some of the features, but I'd like to show you how this is also held up after an extreme amount of use. The first feature I'm going to talk about is the leather strop, and the reason why I talk about this one first is because it is by far for me the most used feature on this sharpener. Now you can call this a sharpener. I don't know. I don't tend to sharpen my knives per se, and in fact I try to beat them so little that I actually never really need to sharpen them. More specifically, I like to hone my edges. So if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that I tend to try to use the least aggressive sharpening method first, which on this happens to be the leather strop. And then if I need to go a little more aggressive, I flip it over and use the ceramic rod. The ceramic rod on this sharpener features 3 different settings on the main bar going across the top. The one you see across the top is the fine ceramic rod, and as you turn the dial, you go past a groove, which is actually like a fish hook ceramic rod. Now I've never used that. I have used that portion of the rod just to try it on different blades and to get a different texture to try to hone my edges, but I haven't really used it for any sort of fish hooks or any sort of sharpening like that. And then as you keep dialing on, you'll notice the ribs. Those ribs are more of a medium ceramic rod, and I do use that a lot. So if I can't get my knife sharp using the leather strop or the fine ceramic rod, I'll dial this over to the medium ceramic rod and I'll give that a shot. Now these next features that I'm going to talk about for me are almost useless. Now I can't say that. These diamond stones, there's a coarse diamond and a medium grit diamond. This one here is the coarse grit. And this one here is the fine. But again, for me, I really try to avoid sharpening my blades. I try to avoid hitting anything that's hard and is going to actually create damage to the edge. Now, if I did damage my blade, of course, I'm going to have to go to, some of these diamond stones or diamond grits to actually, clean up the edge and get it back into an appropriate profile. I have used these to re-profile knives. It's pretty successful. You don't have a whole lot of length on this, but you can certainly handle a good sized knife and really keep things sharp and where you need to honed up really nice, and it works very well for me. You might notice that these have stamped guides. These guides are set at set angles. So for example, this is a 20-degree guide to try to give you the appropriate angle when you're sharpening your blades and when you're laying the blade flat against the sharpener. And I'll show you some examples of this in a minute. But for me, I don't actually use this. What I do is I feel the edge, and after sharpening and practicing for a while, you can actually start to feel the edge of a knife. And so I do everything by hand without the guides. You'll notice that there's a guide on the diamond sharpening side and also on the ceramic side. Now this does not have a stamped angle on it. Neither side does. But supposedly it's set up to be sort of an average angle for the multitude of blades that you're going to use on the sharpener. But for me, again, I do not rely on those angles. Simply I practice consistently, time and time again, trying to get the appropriate sharpening angle on my blades so that I don't need to rely on the guides. Another feature you will notice is this tiny little ceramic rod on the top. Now that's for serrated blades. I typically don't have too many serrated blades. I do have some on my folding knives, but on my larger fixed blade knives. I do not have serrations, so I don't use this a whole heck of a lot. I can tell you though, I have touched up my folding knives and the serrations on those knives, and it's worked well. So it is a good feature. It's nice to have it on there. I just don't personally use it all that often. Some other fine details that you'll notice, there is a lanyard hole. I was actually just thinking to myself the other day, and I've owned this sharpener for almost 2 years now, and I'm like, why the hell haven't I put a lanyard on this? And so, I don't know, I might do that. More than anything else, just for, you know, visibility, for ease of taking this in and out of pockets or in and out of pouches, in and out of my bag. Maybe I'll put something bright and neon to accent with the yellow to help me see it in an outdoors environment. But yeah, I don't know why I never put a lanyard on it, but I think I should. And just to wrap up some of the features, you'll notice that these diamond rods are actually held on by a magnet, and that's the magnet right there. Pull that out of the way, and there are little steps for you in case you need them. But now that I gave you all the steps and a little bit of a background on this, you shouldn't need these steps, and hopefully you have at least enough of a clue to figure this thing out without needing actual instructions to run it. But in case you're confused, here you go. It's on the inside of the diamond rod, and the same with the other side. Oh, look. This may affect a pacemaker. So, well, I didn't know that. I don't have a pacemaker, but if I did, at least I'd have a warning. So that's very helpful. I'm glad they put that on there. This is a detailed look at things, so you can get an idea of how this has stood up to a little bit of use and abuse after 2 full years of wear and tear. Now you'll notice right up in here, just some, you know, some nicks from continually running my knife and, you know, clipping an edge. And, you know, after you've done that a couple thousand times, that's kind of what you're ending up with. For the most part, the ceramic rod is just about perfect, and that's the medium rod, so you can see it's held up just fine. I don't think I've dropped this really too much, so yeah, it probably hasn't ever really taken any good dings right off that ceramic rod, and I have broken other ceramic rods in the past, so that would probably crack if I really dropped it. The diamond's holding up. Now, as I mentioned, I don't use that a whole heck of a lot, but I do, and I've used it for some pretty grueling tasks, so that's held up nicely. It has all of its grit. It hasn't seemed to deteriorate much. Same with the medium side. No real damage to note. The leather's held up just about perfect. I've added compounds and I've put oils on this to try to treat it. The compounds are key because it adds an abrasive that helps to hone the edge while you're stropping. So you can either use a coarse compound, you can use greens and browns, or you could use a fine compound, which is kind of more like a jeweler's rouge. That would be a white compound. They're usually a little softer and less abrasive. I have got little nicks and cuts in this leather from time to time, but it's almost as if with continued use it heals itself. Now, there might be cuts in there. You can see little nicks and little cracks, but I mean, I've nicked this thing pretty good being semi-careless, and just by adding compound and oils, this thing's pretty much hardened right back up to where it needed to, so I've never had any real significant problems with it. So here's just a couple quick examples of how I tend to use the sharpener. And here's, so for example, okay, I have the Hella Knives Galpe. You know, I didn't use this for anything serious. I just cooked some food tonight, and I used this actually as my steak knife to cut my meat. And so before I put this away, I just kind of want to hone the edge a tiny bit. I mean, it doesn't really need it too much, but, you know, maybe just a little bit. So I put this thing away basically pristine. I will use the leather side of the sharpener, and then simply by running my knife backwards along the leather strop, I'll just run it nice and fine a few times, Sometimes, depending on the knife or depending on my mood or what I'm doing, or if I just want to kind of sit there and work on my blades, I'll do this 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 times. It depends. Sometimes I'll just sit there and work on my blade, go on one side, flip it over, go on the other side, nice and easy. Not using too much force at all, just really gentle, and just hone that edge. After a few times, I always check my edge and make sure it feels nice to me, feels the way I want to, no burrs. Just test it real quick. Good old paper, tiny little snag, so maybe I know there's a little spot I need to work on. Right there, you can hear it. You can hear it actually catch, and I can feel it. So that's how I know I need to do a little bit more work to my blade, and I'll just sit there and work it out. I'm not going to do it right now, but that gives you an example of how I might actually use this sharpener, and the reason why I use it on a nightly basis, especially if I use my knives for cooking. Now let's say I'm working with a knife that needs a little more effort, or it needs to be honed up on a slightly more aggressive route. Maybe I've already run the leather strop and it's not doing what it needs to. I could potentially go to the ceramic rod, so I tend to go to the fine rod first. Once I get it set, let's run the blade. Again, I might do 10 passes. I might do 20, 30, 50, 100, 200. I might switch between the ceramic rod and the leather strop just to try to feel where the burrs might be. And if you can hear that, I don't know if the mic's going to pick that up, but if it can, you get a real nice smooth trip down that ceramic rod. And so anyway, same idea. You can see the edge of this SE6 outside of the patina where it's really shiny. So I really try to get those edges refined. Even on blades that have a patina, I'll work that edge until the patina is completely gone. Get that thing right back and razor sharp. So this is where I could really use some help from an additional cameraman, and not doing this myself, but I even use this sharpener for larger blades such as the SE Hungalis. Same idea, you have more than enough rod here. Let's just say I was trying to work that edge. Just draw the knife right down that edge. Now my geometry is a little screwed up. Geometry is everything with sharpening. It's a little screwed up now because I'm trying to show you this on camera, but if I was going to do it for real, I'd be much more careful and I'd try to sharpen all the way to the tip. Right now, just with the angle that I'm at, I can't exactly do that, and I don't want to cut myself, but again, just draw that blade. So nice down that rod. And then on the leather strop, same thing. I start at the tip and I run it backwards, over and over and over. After a little while of practice, you'll feel the best way to hold this. Sometimes I hold it this way, sometimes I hold it this way. It completely depends. I don't honestly think about it too much. It's just a technique that develops over use and over a period of time. And finally, what I'd like to show you is a recurve blade. A lot of people say they don't like recurve blades because they're difficult to sharpen. I completely disagree, and especially with a sharpener like this that has multiple options, and most notably the ceramic rod. It's easy to do a great job sharpening. So in this particular case, again, get a nice firm grip, keep your fingers out of the way. Just run that blade. I'll change the angle real quick and give you a final look. Again, a final look on the recurve blade of the SP53. establish your angle, and just ever so nicely run that blade right along the ceramic rod. Even works in reverse, honing on the leather strop. More than enough leather to do the job that you need here. And I think part of the key too is the reasonably narrow diameter. It's not like it's the width of a belt, so you get a nice firm leather surface that's not too flimsy, so it helps maintain a good sharp edge without too much of the actual blade edge rolling over, which in some cases, if you were to use another leather strop, could potentially dull the edge. I've never had that problem using this. So that's just a quick tabletop review of the WorkSharp Field Sharpener. I'm obviously a big fan of this. I love this sharpener very much. I use it every day. I recommend it to anybody and everybody. If you already have a sharpener, you should buy this anyway. If you don't have one, in my opinion, this is at least one that you should get. You should probably have more than one sharpener, but you definitely need to add this to your arsenal and use it regularly. You'll gain a lot of understanding of how to sharpen. It's easy to use. It has a lot of options. It's durable. And for me, I don't think I could go without it. So as long as they make these, I will own one. And if they come out with a new version, I'll probably try that too. But again, I highly recommend this. I hope this was informative. And I hope you guys come back soon. Take care now. See you guys.